I'm Kristal Hart, and we are at Yale University, where the U.S. Postal Service honors William F. Buckley Jr. on a postal stamp. William F. Buckley Jr. was a defining figure in modern U.S. conservatism. As founder of the National Review and host of the public television series Firing Line, he shaped the conservative movement into a powerful political force. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1999, and today he is being recognized on a U.S. postal stamp. Could I ask you, as Dean of Yale, could you tell me a little bit about William F. Buckley Jr. and his legacy here?
Sure. Buckley was a student here right after the Second World War. He served in the Army, I believe, and he came at around the age of 21, graduated at 25. He was a leader in the Yale Daily News, the Conservative Party, the Yale Political Union, and then, of course, after he graduated, wrote a famous book called God and Man at Yale, with some of the shortcomings of Yale, but also some of the things that he admired about the place.
And what does the administration feel about that booklet?
Well, it's 75 years ago, so in some ways it's water under the bridge, but it's also still quite timely in the sense that he addresses the question of research and scholarship and how they interact with teaching and the transmission of values that happens in a college education.
And he was a wonderful debater with a wonderful vocabulary. Tell us a little bit about the debate team. It is one of the top, isn't it, in the country?
We have great debate. We have the Yale Political Union, which is also a home for political debate, and we have a very lively scene on campus for the exchange of views and ideas.
And has it changed much since his time, or?
Well, I've only been here 27 of those 75 years. The place changes, but the essence remains the same, I think.
And what do you think of the stamp?
Oh, the stamp is beautiful, and it was a great event. We were really honored to host it.
Thank you.
The William F. Buckley Jr. program is the flagship program of the Buckley Institute, which is an organization dedicated to promoting freedom of speech and intellectual diversity on Yale's campus. And we've done that for the past 15 years, hosting a wide array of events throughout the semester, almost each week of the semester, whether it be small-scale dinners with Yale professors to big public lectures, which fill up the biggest lecture halls on campus with politicians, academics, and whatnot.
And does the university back?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
And what do you think of the stamp today?
I thought the stamp was excellent. I think it, as has been stated, captures Bill Buckley's essence very well, the sort of defiance that he had standing athwart history, and it was a real pleasure to see the life-size version here today in front of some very excellent guests.
And you're a student here?
I am. I'm a senior graduating in the spring.
Congratulations. What are you going to what's your major?
I'm a history major, so working on my thesis now. Bill Buckley may be mentioned at some point in it, but we shall see.
The Buckley Institute at Yale is an amazing place. I'm on the board and one of Bill and Pat Buckley's many nieces and nephews, and one of the nephews. The Buckley Institute was started about in 2010, so 15 years ago, and it's taken off. It's like this is one of the big conversations in America now, is whether you can have true diversity of opinion on college campuses, and that fight's been going on really since the 1950s with Bill Buckley at Yale. And so now it's spread to all the other universities. So the Buckley Institute started, it's taken off at this point, and it's an amazing statistic. 11% of Yale students are fellows at the Buckley Institute. So there was a tremendous need for conservative thought, even among liberals that want some balance. It's you want respectful, you want to learn the pearls of the past. And those things have to be available to students today. So the Institute's doing an amazing thing. This was a great ceremony. It was a beautiful day for it. George Will was terrific. Christopher was terrific. And we couldn't be prouder and more grateful to the Postal Service for extending this honor.
And what do you think of the stamp?
I think the stamp is beautiful. I wasn't sure about the photo at first, but now I've come completely in favor of it. There's a look of compassion for the country. I think just a general concern and compassion for the country, and I'll be glad to be putting out all my Christmas cards this year.
Me too.
Yeah.
With us is Dale Stefanis, and he is the artist of this beautiful stamp behind me, and this is for the William F. Buckley Jr. ceremony. Now, Dale, tell me, it's a 1960s picture. did you come up with this idea, or?
I used several pictures. What the Postal Service does is they give you several pictures to work from, sort of candidates, and the one that everyone decides sort of fits the personality best is chosen. So this was actually, the reference photo was, he was on a boat. He was an avid sailor, and it was really tough to work from. So I just zoomed in as much as I could, and that's actually my coat and tie that I used for a separate photo. You just use an old photo and you kind of do the best you can, and you hope for the best.
Now, did the Postal Service pick it, or did you have the final say on which photo?
I think it's sort of a group decision. It's obvious which photos don't work, but then you have a lot of candidates that could work, and I think it's a matter of striking the right balance between the mood and the age of the person, because he was around for a long time in the public eye, and it's difficult to choose which era to really go for, and this, I think, this was the right era.
And what part of his personality do you think that it shows? His wit, or?
I really enjoyed his wit. I loved how he could really wield words like a sword. But what I was most impressed with my research was his son's writing about what an avid sailor he was, and just how bold he was. And it made me think about, he was the sort of the founder of the modern conservative intellectual movement. And to start something like that, you've got to be really bold. So I thought this photo sort of really captured that determined look. There are lots of other photos where he was smiling and laughing, and those looked a lot like him when you watched him on video, but I felt like this really captured the tone of his personality.
And going forward, how will this help his legacy, especially to the younger generation?
Well, I hope they would just become aware of him if they're not already, and really anybody who's remembered with a commemorative stamp, you're part of the permanent tapestry of American history. That really cements you in there.
The William F. Buckley Jr. stamp. I can't help but begin by remarking on how perfectly appropriate that seems, because in all places and for all time, Americans will affix that stamp on the right.
I'm grateful to be here to honor William F. Buckley Jr., one of Yale College's most distinguished alumni. I'd like to thank the United States Postal Service, the Buckley family, and artist Dale Stefanos, who brought Buckley's striking image to life on this commemorative stamp. Stefanos' portrait of Buckley so aptly captures the spirit of sharp intellect, determination, and thoughtful discourse that shaped Buckley's time here at Yale College and his intellectual leadership of the conservative movement. Today, we are proud of how Buckley's legacy endures at Yale in the Yale Daily News, Yale Political Union, and Conservative Party, in all of which he took a leading role. In 2010, a group of undergraduates founded the Buckley Institute, named in his honor, whose programs and initiatives continue to foster free expression and diversity of perspective on campus. As a young Canadian, I learned a lot about the United States and about the exchange of ideas from watching William F. Buckley on firing line. At that time, I certainly did not anticipate that I would become someday the Dean of Yale College, a role in which I've come to appreciate Buckley's legacy more deeply. As you know, Buckley enrolled at Yale directly after his service in World War II. Looking back 3/4 of a century to when he graduated at the age of 25, many of the issues that we face at Yale today were already on the mind of this thoughtful critic. The post-war period saw a great expansion of higher education due to the GI Bill. It also witnessed the growth of the great research universities that have contributed so much to our country and our economy through discoveries in medicine, technology, and other fields. At Yale, the residential college system was less than 20 years old, and the influx of veterans like Buckley led to undergraduate enrollment exceeding 4,000 for the first time. Rereading God and Man at Yale recently, I was struck by Buckley's emphasis on how college teaching intersects with the culture of scholarship. He stood at the cusp of an important transformation in American academic culture. He focused above all on the challenge of transmitting the traditional values associated with college in the context of the newly emerging research university. It is clear that he took full advantage of the opportunities provided by student debate and journalism at Yale to hone the skills that would make him such a formidable historical figure. His lively sense of humor also suggests that he enjoyed himself very much while he was here. Although the book became famous for its criticisms of his alma mater, I was also struck by the deep love for Yale that motivated Buckley's insights. Let me conclude by reminding you of his dedication of the book, which reads, "For God, for country, and for Yale," in that order.
As one of our more influential public intellectuals, Mr. Buckley was able to combine different strands of conservative thought into a cohesive movement that shaped American politics and culture for decades. In 1955, he founded National Review magazine, which became the leading conservative publication of the nation. And in 1966, he created Firing Line, the Emmy Award-winning public affairs TV program that featured spirited discussions on issues of the day in a format that engaged conservative and liberal viewers alike. He understood something that is often forgotten today. Democracy isn't strengthened by surrounding ourselves with people who think as we do. Democracy is strengthened by engaging seriously with those who challenge us. He understood that the health of our democracy depends not just on having the right answers, but by asking the right questions.
Because it has been truly said that confession, although good for the soul, is bad for the reputation, I have a confession to start with. I was once a college professor. The stain endures. Actually, I mention that because it's relevant to Bill Buckley's astonishing capacity and talent for friendship. In June 1976, his brother Jim, having won the Senate in 1970 on the Conservative Party line, the Republican Party came to its senses and nominated him in 1976 for another term in the Senate. That night, a man who became one of my best friends and a good friend of Bill Buckley's, Pat Moynihan, was nominated by the Democrats. Over at Jim Buckley's headquarters, Jim said, "I look forward to running against Professor Moynihan. I congratulate Professor Moynihan on his nomination tonight. I look forward to ensuring that Professor Moynihan will run the kind of high-caliber campaign you would expect of a Harvard professor." Back at Pat's headquarters, a journalist said, "Pat, Jim Buckley is referring to you as Professor Moynihan." Pat drew himself up to his full, considerable height and said, the mudslinging has begun." But Pat, of course, became one of the legion of friends that he had. I am a lapsed professor, very lapsed, 55 years lapsed and counting. But I want to do what Bill, who was our public professor, always taught the country to do, which is start with fundamentals. Ask the basic questions. The basic question I want to ask is, why do we have politics at all? It permeates everything, makes almost everyone cranky. In 2 months, politics is going to spoil millions of Thanksgiving dinners. Why do we have politics? Trout get along very well without politics. Ants and beaver collaborate in building anthills and dams, but no one talks about the politics of ants or the politics of beaver. Bees even have a hierarchy in an apiary, queens and drones, but we don't talk about the politics of an apiary. What is it about human beings that makes us have these extraordinary, unfortunate things called politics? Well, actually, they're not unfortunate. We have politics because we are unique creatures in two senses. We are egotistical about our opinionatedness. We have opinions and we're egotistical about them. We think they're the best because we are, as Aristotle said, language users. We are here today to honor and remember someone who took the English language to new heights and taught Americans to argue civilly, elegantly, and eloquently. Most of all, he taught us to have fun. Politics is supposed to be fun. In 1948, an Arizona businessman, he ran a department store in Phoenix, decided to dip his toe into the maelstrom of politics by running for the Phoenix City Council. And this man named Barry Goldwater wrote a letter to his brother to explain. He said about politics, he said, "It ain't for life and it might be fun." Well, it pretty much was for life for Barry Goldwater, but he didn't always seem to be having fun. Fortunately, Yale in 1948 was incubating someone who would tell us how to enjoy politics, to make it fun. The purpose of politics, the first purpose, not the exhaustive purpose, but the first purpose of politics is to get people like us, opinionated and egotistical, to live peacefully together. Keep the peace. Now, some people say, well, that's not a grand enough mission for politics. That's banal. In the middle of 2025, it doesn't look so simple or banal. And what Bill showed was that opinionated, articulate, and egotistical people, that is, who prefer their own opinions, could have a wonderful time doing politics, and we could all have a wonderful time watching them do it. I remember when I first became a columnist, I did what I asked what I now know to be the question most asked of columnists. I called Bill and said, "How do you come up with all those things to write about?" Bill, without hesitating, said, "The world irritates me 3 times a week." But he was never seemed irritated. There was a high-spiritedness and fun to all this that kept going on. And while he was having fun, he managed to become the most consequential journalist in American history.
Warm thanks to the United States Postal Service, which has printed, if this is accurate, 12 million WFB commemorative stamps. So there's still some left for you, Daniel Oliver. A tremendous amount of work and detail goes into a commemorative stamp. There are many, many qualifications. For one thing, you have to have been dead for 5 years. That's the easy part. Lindsay Craig and the National Review Institute started the ball rolling. My profound thanks, Leslie, for that work. So in the fullness of time, I received an email from the Postal Service, oxymoronic as that sounds. I said, apropos this event, I said, "Are they sending out printed invitations?" I said, "Oops." Informing me that WFB would be honored with a stamp on the centenary year of his birth. The Washington Post called me for a comment. I said that it made me want to start stamp collecting all over again. There was a lot of back and forth on the design. At the end of the day, Dale, the fine design team at USPS, and Dale Stefanos came up with this one. The idea was to show WFB at the helm of his sailboat during a cocktail cruise on Long Island Sound in the middle of a howling northeast gale. He's saying to his terrified, drenched, captive guests, "Isn't this fun?" It also depicts him as he might look upon being told that he actually won the 1965 New York City mayoral race. He's about to demand a recount. Finally, today I want to thank dear old Mother Yale, without whom we would not be here today, for 2 reasons. First, obviously, for generously allowing us to hold this event on campus, fittingly in front of the Beinecke Library, the repository of the WFB archive, all 550 linear feet of them. If all those boxes were stacked one upon another, they'd probably topple over. But the second reason is, and here I'm repeating much of what Lauren has told you, but the second reason is that without Mother Yale, there might not have been a William F. Buckley Jr., at least as we knew him. 75, we should have done this together. 75 years ago, he was asked to give the Alumni Day speech, a great honor. He submitted the draft of his speech for review by the administration, housed there in that wonderful building, Woodbridge Hall. As they read his speech, a collective gasp was audible all the way down to the tables at Maury's, the place where Louis dwells, and well beyond. Mother Yale took a hit of smelling salts, cleared her throat, suggested that it might be a tad awkward giving a speech akin to Martin Luther's 95 Theses. He responded with noblesse oblige, recused himself, expanded the speech, and published it a year later under the title, God and Man at Yale. The rest you know, and here we are. 5 years after graduating from the university that he never stopped loving, despite their differences, he founded National Review. In the mission statement of the inaugural issue, he declared that National Review would stand athwart history, yelling, "Stop." It's a mighty line. I've been quoting it for years. I'm still not sure what it means, but it's right up there with Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Whatever it means, I think we can all agree that from this day forward, WFB stands athwart history, yelling, "Stamp." Thank you, United States Postal Service, Mr. Cronkite. Thank you, George Will, Peter, Lauren, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Dean Lewis, Bula Bula, beat Harvard.
With us, the son of William F. Buckley Jr., Christopher Buckley. Now, Christopher, tell me, this is a 1960, from the 1960, this photograph?
I think it's about 1967. Yeah, he's, you can't see, but he's on his sailboat, which provided me with the inspiration for the line in my speech that it captures him at the helm of his sailboat while he's out for a cocktail cruise on Long Island Sound in the middle of a raging northeast gale, which I do not exaggerate. Or alternately, it captures him as he's being told that he actually won the 1965 New York mayoral election and is on the verge of demanding a recount.
So he was very adventurous, as well as having a great vocabulary.
He was adventurous. Great, great men. Always, they take these risks. He, in the context of his sailing, if there was a storm coming when everyone else would be taking in sail, I certainly would be reducing sail. He was putting more up. And it was often made for a scary ride, but you knew that you were in the presence of greatness, I suppose you could say.
Well, it coincides with what would be his 100th birthday. Is there any special story that he might want the world to know that?
Well, I think he will turn 100 on November 24th of this year. And I think the best I can't think of a better 100th birthday present than a stamp.
I agree. And I want to ask, he played such a great big role in the conservative movement. What would he think of today's conservative movement, do you think?
Well, you tempt me into tricky terrain. He was actually asked not long before he died, because why would anyone ask him after he died? But he was, forgive me, he was asked shortly before he died what he thought of the current state of conservatism. And his reply was very WFB-ish. He said that he thought modern conservatism was in need of repristination. A lot of people would have to look that up in the dictionary, but it means to renew, clean, some cleaning would be in order.
Okay, and just to end, what all did he add to the political debate?
Well, he elevated the debate. I mean, he made it about ideas and issues. It was never ad hominem. He didn't call people names. And he also reached out and to people who were completely opposite to him in politics, and invited them to to give it their best shot, to make their argument, and he would engage on those grounds. And remarkably, this will sound sort of cliched, but many of his best friends were liberals and Democrats, people like the late John Kenneth Galbraith, the famous Harvard economist. I mean, they wouldn't agree on what time the sun was going to rise, but they were devoted friends to each other. They enjoyed the argument. It was a feast. It wasn't a battleground. It was a meal, and I think we could use some more of that today.
Just to end, how would he feel about going around the world on bills, Con Edison bills, and a stamp?
Well, I think he'd be standing in a line at the post office saying, "Do you have any more?"
And I'm Kristal Hart reporting from Yale University on the William F. Buckley Jr. stamp. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, and mail a letter today.